Hey, this is Gayle with Bernina of Naperville, and welcome to our August session of Bernina Software Building Blocks. So this one is something that I think a lot of you have been waiting for. Debbie, in her videos on the Bernina Skill Hub, does such a great job of explaining how to create an edge-to-edge design using Creator, how to go about stitching it out. And then she uses the art canvas side to create some geometric shapes and things like that for your fancy quilting designs in the Bernina Designer Plus portion. But what I want to do this month is kind of take you through making elements that you can connect together using your new Pro machines. That would be the new 735 Pro, 770 Quilters Edition Pro, the 790 Pro, the 700 Pro, and the Bernina 990. Now, this is really cool because, as you know, we can match start stops and we can do all kinds of fun things. So, what I'm going to show you how to do in our portion is make different elements in the software that you can then group together right on your machine and essentially customize for any kind of quilting that you would want to do, no matter what shape or size or anything like that. Now, there are some crucial ingredients for this. I'm going to focus on the new Bernina Pro Series machines. And of course, when we talk about our ultimate Bernina, the 990, how you can also take these elements, match the stop start points, because remember, we can show stop start, match them together, and then create different kinds of shapes as well. Are you in? Now, there is a crucial ingredient with this, and that is taking the designs that we create in our Bernina embroidery software and turning them into BQM files. Bet you didn't think you could do that, but you can, and I'm going to show you how. So let's roll up our sleeves and look at our presentation deck. Okay, so like I mentioned, we are digitizing for a quilter for our lesson 4. And I hope that you enjoy this. I got a lot out of it. Now, we have Bernina of Naperville content that you have either stumbled upon right now on our YouTube channel, but if you're like, where did I find that or whatever, and you want to sign up for our program, you're going to get this presentation deck that I'm working from. And I always give you a link to the video right here on this page in that PDF that you receive from us via email. Now, here, let me just explain. So, Bernina of America has a platform called the Skill Hub. And you would go to the Skill Hub, you create a username and password, and then you can shop for classes there. It's their direct to customer education learning platform. So, the building blocks, there's two. There's volume 1 and there's volume 2. And you would just retrieve your lessons there. Now, you might notice when you go onto their site that you see that there is a $150 charge for this. Well, if you sign up through Bernina of Naperville, you're paying us for those Skill Hub courses. We're just giving you added lessons that we put together too. So when you go there, you're going to use the access codes you get from us on their site as you do your online shopping. You know, it's kind of like a coupon code or something like that. You're going to go through, you're going to enter the number, and then it will take the price off of your cart, and then you will be able to have access to the software building blocks. And so far, there have been 3 lessons, 4 lessons, including the one that you're about to watch. And then you can go back and watch them again and again. Now, the Bernina of America content does go away after 2 years, but the Bernina of Naperville stuff lives forever. So there's a lot of instructions. Bernina of America is giving you tons. So there are 4 PDF handouts. Edge-to-edge digitizing presentation, that's the whole PowerPoint that Debbie takes you through in both the Creator and the Designer Plus portions of class. There's the Creator Edge-to-Edge Quilting, the Creator Exercise Artwork, and the Designer Plus Artwork Canvas Quilting. So if you get our presentation deck, you can just link directly to these things, and it will give you those PDFs that Debbie has put together. There's also, if you look at this, this is artwork. So that's going to give you the pictures that Debbie works from so that you can have them too, because I think in Creator, you're not getting all of the artwork files that you do in Designer Plus. You also get these handouts, one on continuous line quilting and one on creating the artwork or the designs in the artwork portion of our software, which a lot of you have asked about. Can we please have more classes using that Corel artwork canvas portion of the software? If you want to see where or if you don't have it bookmarked or whatever, and you want to get to the Bernina Skill Hub, you just simply click this link and it'll take you right there. Now you're going to sign on to retrieve, your lessons and whatever. And sometimes if you haven't logged on in a while, it's going to ask you for a 6-digit code that they then email to you. So you have to, keep an eye on your email and then enter that 6 digits in when you sign on. And then you will find your classes and you will watch the Debbie Lashbrook content, which I recommend that you watch her content before you watch ours, because I always take what she puts together and we kind of put our own spin on things and we do another little micro lesson. So that's why you're watching me today. So in the Bernina produce portion, like I mentioned, Debbie is going to take you through how to create an edge-to-edge design, how to stitch it out, and how to create a quilting design in Designer Plus using the tools in Artwork Canvas. So that's what you're getting from Debbie. What you're getting from Bernina of Naperville is creating quilting elements for Pro and 990 machines. So basically digitizing shapes and elements to be used on our new Pro model machines, and how they can really be super used using the Bernina, Ultimate Bernina 990. We're also going to talk a little bit about what a BQM file is and what makes them different from EXP files, and then how to create a BQM file. So let's have a little word about the new Pro machines. There are the new machines that I mentioned in the intro. They were launched this summer at Bernina University. The B735 Pro, the 770 Quilters Edition Pro, and the 700 Pro, which is embroidery only. Now, these models replace the Bernina 735, the 770 Plus Quilters Edition, and the B700. The B790 Pro is remaining the same, of course, because it's brand new, although it did get a new firmware. And in that new B790 Pro firmware, in the settings screen, you are going to get actual words showing up instead of just the icons. The words aren't everywhere, but just in your setup program, so you kind of know how to navigate through that a little bit. The 990 also got an update, but mostly those are enhancements for the machine to be reading the new accessories, like those new hoops and some additional things. So if you want to see a little deep dive on this, hey, go ahead and check our video out that we did. And I've hot stamped it so it talks about what all of the machines do and their new features. Essentially, for the new Pro series, we are getting the following capabilities. We get the laser for the pinpoint accuracy in sewing and embroidery. We get the morphing capabilities, as well as free point and grid pinpoint placement that we've had for a long time now on our machines with pinpoint placement. And we have the ability to read BQM files like the B790 Pro and the B990 already do. So let's talk about the benefits of the entire Bernina embroidery line if we're thinking in terms of creating quilting designs using our Bernina embroidery software, and using the quilting designs that I'm going to be creating for you, or you're going to be creating along with me, to enhance what you already have on your machine. So some of these things are going to go for pretty much any Bernina that's been made since 2014. And that's the ability to import decorative stitches like you see right here on this screen. You can see our little zigzaggy satin stitch rickrack design that has been altered with the length. And we have used the pattern limitation 5 times. So it looks like that. So we have the ability to import decorative stitches from the sewing side into embroidery. We've had this for a long time with the Bernina 830 and with some subsequent machines that were released after that. So basically what you do is you just pick a stitch on the sewing side, alter it, do what you need to it, And then when you toggle over into your embroidery side and you select your personal folder or the heart folder, it's going to be the first stitch right there. And you can see it there. It shows up as that little pink design there. Now, this is a benefit to quilters because it's totally great when you're quilting because you gain so many choices. The designs will come out great, particularly when they're stitched at original size. But remember that these designs are EXP designs, and when you enlarge them a lot and you reduce them a lot, there could be some level of distortion or the stitches aren't going to be exactly the same size or whatever. Now, I'm telling you right now that there are several people out there that won't even notice a difference, and that's fine. But sometimes if I want to take this design that you see down here and make it super wide, like going from 2 inches maybe to 5 inches, you might see a little bit of a difference. And I'm going to tell you, it's still better looking than what I can do free motion, but nonetheless. So we see here, this is a machine up here that has multi-direction sewing. So that stitch is 36.4 millimeters, which turns out to be about 1.25 inches wide. And that was a 9 repetition design. So we can see there, I'm sorry, 959 repetitions or whatever I did there, but you can see how it shows up in that screen there. Now, that's a disadvantage. You don't have the infinite enlarging and reducing, but you do also lose a capability on the Bernina 990 where you can, you know how the 990 shows start stop, the flip start stop feature will not work with the EXP files. If you have the 990, you know what I'm talking about. They use the BQM files. So what is a BQM file? A BQM file is a quilting design file format used with Bernina embroidery machines, specifically the Bernina 790, 770, 735, and 700 Pro models. That Pro is very important there. We got it first with our Bernina Qmatic system, hence BQM, Bernina Qmatic. It's a vector-based file that allows for resizing, reshaping, and customizing the stitch by pulling the information that's stored in the sewing computer settings, and that's labeled stitches per inch. So if we look up here on our B990, it lives in our settings under embroidery, and it's the last choice right here. So when we set our stitches per inch, I think the default is 12 stitches per inch. So you can see in my example here that I've increased the stitches per inch to 14, which means that the stitches are going to present shorter. If I were to go to 9 stitches per inch, the stitches would present longer. Likewise, if we look down here on our Bernina Pro Series machines, our stitches per inch live in the same part. We go to settings, embroidery settings. That little squiggle there, that's quilting settings. And this one is 10 stitches per inch is the default, but the same applies to any of our Pro Series machines. When we adjust that higher, our stitches are going to be smaller, and when we adjust it lower, they're going to be longer. So the BQM files enable users to create and manipulate quilt designs for both free motion quilting and computerized quilting long arm machines. And you can see here, when I go to my settings, let's make my stitch 9 stitches per inch. And now let's look at those needle penetration points. See how they're much further apart? And now let's do the opposite. Let's go to a really close together stitch, like 21 stitches per inch. And now we can see that they're much closer together. So that's why we can essentially enlarge and reduce our BQM files with limitless capabilities, right? Because we can take something very small and adjust and something very big and adjust. So we're going to get started in just a moment, but I do want to address Debbie's videos. So Debbie spends a lot of time to make the designs accurate, and that's for folks who may not have morph or pinpoint placement or a camera or a laser. EXP files do not enlarge and reduce the same way. We just talked about that as the BQM files, and it makes the design. And so she's making the design custom for the quilt, the actual item that she has pieced. And that results in zero need to enlarge or reduce. Some people, like I mentioned, they don't have machines capable of using a BQM file, and I've listed the older Bernina machines here. Now, these are, I'm sure I've missed a couple machines there, but I've tried to cover all of them there. So if you have a machine on this list, you are going to have to follow Debbie's instructions and you're going to be using the EXP files that I'm creating for you, not the BQM files. And I do have a download in this presentation deck for you where you can download what I create, but I really want you, this is a software class. I want you to create your own so you can have that power to make anything that you want. So why a BQM file? If I haven't covered this already, it's because when we are making something that is specific to one project and that project is going to be quilted and we're never going to replicate it again, we probably don't need to go to the efforts to make a BQM file. We're making it custom for that particular quilt. It's going to quilt. It's done. We don't need it again. So maybe, though, there are some things that I make that I know I'm going to use this again and again and again. So when you want to use a design and customize it for multiple size projects in the future, you're going to want something that you can go from 2 inches in size to 5 inches in size and maybe 12 inches in size, right? Because we've got that 990 that can go up to a 12-inch square. Sometimes you might have a wonky shaped block on purpose, or maybe not. Sometimes I do things quickly and I'm not the best piecer. And then you want to morph. So remember, when you're morphing, you're enlarging and reducing, and sometimes you're really doing funky things to that design. So even though we can morph an EXP file and a regular embroidery file, it's not always recommended from Bernina because you will not have the best sewing experience in some cases. So always do a test when you do that. But I mentioned it gives us limitless enlarging and reducing. So let's get into our software and let's start creating some fun things. So here we are in our lovely Bernina embroidery software. I'm using the Designer Plus version, and we want to set things up. I like to set up my workspace so that it's going to be the same every time I go there. I'm going to have my grid set the same. I'm going to have snap to grid. I'm going to have my background a certain way and all of those things. So we're going to start that by making a template. So first, what I'm going to do is change the color of the background to white. I can just see it better. So we're going to go down to design, fabric, background, and display colors. And I'm going to choose white for outside of the hoop and white for inside the hoop. And I'm going to say OK. Another thing that I want to do is double check my auto start and end. And I want to make sure that start position is unchecked and end position is unchecked. Now I want to right click on my grid. We can see my grid here, right? Visible, not visible. And I'm going to close this guy out so we can see more of my hoop. So I'm going to right click on the grid and I want to make sure that we say show grid, right? I want to make sure we say snap to grid. And I want to make sure that I do this in 1/2 inch increments. So I'm going to do 0.5 inches and 0.5 inches. And for whatever reason, when you change the grid spacing, it deselects snap to grid. So just change your spacing first and then select the little button there on snap to grid. And now I'm going to say OK. And now when I select my digitizing points, this is going to be really easy right now. We're doing open object tool under the digitize toolboxes here. We want the open. We're just going to do a straight line. And notice how when my mouse is hovered over an intersection, that both the vertical and the horizontal line turns red. So that's what we want. And now we want to place a left click. And now I'm going to drag this over to a line there. So that's what snap to grid means. And then enter on your keyboard, right? So I'm going to Control A and delete that because what I want to do before we start doing any creating is now that we have all of the things set up and we're going to double check on our hoop. I like to have my hoops automatically centered with my foot. And I'm going to change this to my large magnetic hoop and view to hoop. And now I'm set up. Now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to make all of those awesome and wonderful things. So now I can say File, Save as Template, and I'm going to call this my quilting template. So now what happens when I open a new design, File, New from Template, I can choose my quilting and say OK. And all of those adjustments that I made to this board to do things the way I like it, like the, snap to grid, the white color, the hoop centering, like we did here, all of those things are going to remain the same. Now, you can do this not just for quilting, but you can do this for any other type of thing. Maybe you don't like the way that the Bernina software is set up at all, and you don't like how it always reverts back to those normal template settings. You can make those adjustments here. So I thought that you would enjoy being able to do that. So now that we have everything that we need, I'm going to close out my quilting template. This is good. All right, let's make a line. We just saw me do it, but we're going to do it again, right? So the wheel on my mouse allows me to zoom into my work so I can place my mouse so that I know I'm clicking right on that intersection. And I did this so that when I go to make a straight line, I know that it's really going to be straight because if I don't have the snap to grid line on, I could be off by like just a millimeter and it's going to affect the way that our quilting works when we are bringing that over to the machine and we're trying to place it over our beautifully pieced work. If I've done a great length to make sure that I'm piecing straight, I don't want to screw things up by making a crooked stitch in my software, right? So now once you do your two left clicks, you're going to hit enter. And now let's go ahead and just view all. And now we want to select our design. And I want to double check the start and end. So we're going to use our reshape object to do that. And then you can see we have our green diamond that is indicative of the starting point, and our red cross, which is indicative of the last stitch in the design. And this is a powerful element for you to use. So we're going to save this. We're going to save this a couple different ways. So I'm going to go ahead and say File, Save As, find the folder I want to save it in, and I'm going to call this Straight Line. And now this is saving it as a grade A art file. I can alter this and everything, no problem. I always like these. Since I have software, I want to be able to always go back to that native file. But I also want to save this as an EXP for those folks that can't read BQM files. So we do this a little bit of a special way. We're going to say File, Export Machine File, find our folder, and now this is going to be called Straight Line EXP by clicking the drop-down menu of our software. So Bernina's read EXP files. They read other file extensions too, but EXP is what we want to use here. And now we say save. Perfect. Now let's create a new design. New from template, and pick the quilting one. So we have all of our settings that it remembers, right? And now I'm going to select a rectangle. And remember, we're going to click when our mouse gets both of those X and Y cross lines highlighted in red. And then we're going to, I don't even care if this is square, to be honest with you. There we go. Now we're going to select and we're going to turn it to a single stitch outline. And we want to make this square. So let's say if we're going to do this on a Bernina 990 or a Pro machine, it doesn't really matter. But if I'm making this for folks that might have all different kinds of, you know, they don't have the ability to do the morph like we do, and you want limited enlarging and reducing, I might decide to do a 6 by 6 inch. So undo your proportions there. And now let's do 6 and hit enter. And now let's view to hoop. And now we have a 6-inch square. And now I would save this. We're going to call it 6-inch square. And I'm saving it in the native form, which is the Art 90. And now I'm going to save it as an EXP. And that's export machine file when you're saving for an EXP. Now, if I want to make another size, I might consider reducing, just using my direct entry for size here. So let's say I wanted to do another one that was 2 inches by 2 inches. And now the same thing. Start with saving it as an art file. Up, I gave it like a caret there instead of an 8. Oh well, we'll fix that in a minute. And now let's save this as, or export this as an EXP. Remember, you're exporting as a EXP, you're saving if it's an art file. I could even rotate this and save it. So for instance, let's take this and let's rotate it. And now if this is something that we want to go in like that 6-inch square and fit nicely, then I want to make this 6 inches wide and 6 inches tall and enter. And so now that's a square that'll fit in a square. So we're going to call this one 6-inch on point. So now file, save as, and now we're going to say file, export machine file as an EXP. Now, that's fun, but maybe we want to do, let's do new. See what happened there? I hit new. It goes to the standard, right? Let's do file, new from template, quilting. And now I get the one that I don't have to, set up my fancy board for. It remembers. Okay, so now maybe we want to make some sort of curve, right? So let's do, can do this a couple different ways. Let's take our ellipse tool and let's start right in the center. And now I'm going to come down like 2 inches, I guess. So this would be a 4-inch circle. And I'm making sure when I come down that everything is red. So now I left click. And now I'm going to go over. So I'm making this 2 inches wide. And it should be 8 squares wide up there. And I'm going to left click and then enter on the keyboard. And now I'm going to select it and use single outline. And now I have a circle, which I can then save as a 4-inch circle. Okay, so 4-inch circle. And now I'll export it as a 4-inch circle. So in this case, this isn't going to be a continuous line design, right? Because what we have here is, if we look at our shape designer, we have a start and stop point in the same spot. And that's totally fine. I just wanted to point that out to you. Now, if you wanted to make this, like a continuous line design, then we would need to take our open object tool and go from that point and see that it started and ended here. So then if we take the whole design and right click and drag to make a copy, and let's play it. I'm going to change the colors of this to something different there so we can see. Now, let's talk a little bit about our stitch length when we're creating an EXP. So if we look at our circle and we go to Object Properties, which is right up here, you can see that our outline stitch is 2 millimeters long, because in this we do millimeters versus stitches per inch. So let's just say we wanted something about 3 millimeters long, and the minimum 3 millimeters, we could say apply. And now our stitch gets longer. You can see it there if I zoom in on it. And what if we simply wanted just the top part of our piece here, just the semicircle? I'm copying it and pasting it. And now let's look at our reshape items. And now we can see it's going to start here and it's going to end there. And remember, if we want to change the direction, that's a simple thing to do. I just drag the start over here and then it puts the end right there. Now, if I save this just as this arc, I've also got something that I can use as a quilt element, because let's just have a look here. If, for instance, I'm just going to do mirror merge to keep things easy on here, a mirror merge wreath to keep things simple, and we'll go for 4. We can create a little design like this. Now we have some jump stitches, right? And that's because here, if we look and do our reshape, we can see that this one is going to start and end here. Then we have this one, which starts and ends. And then this one, which is going to start and end, but they kind of got a little bit out of order. So this might be a situation where we need to scoot them around. And now this one stitches, then this one, then this one, then this one, and we see no jump stitches, right? And so if we play it, makes this really cool, like cathedral windows type item, right? So now this could be something fun that we could save, as well as just saving one of the elements. So let's do a new file. from template. And I'm going to save just one of these guys like that. And I'm going to say File, Save As. And this is a 4-inch arc or 4-inch semicircle. And this is, I'll call this 4-inch cathedral windows. Or is it 4 inches? Let's cancel. Let's select all. This is 4 inches. So File, Save As, 4-inch cathedral window, or orange peel, or whatever you want to call it. And there's so many different ways we can add these together. We can do these and everything. So now I want to export this one as my 4-inch semicircle. And I want to export this one as my 4-inch cathedral window. All right. Well, I think we've made a lot of stuff. And now why don't we go to our new program so that I can show you how to make these a BQM file. So down here, we have our embroidery tool shed. So this is, you can purchase this from BERNINA of Naperville. You're purchasing the My Quilt Planner. So we're going to double click this and it's going to open. And we're going to open a design and we're going to find our folder where I've been saving all of these things. So here are all of our designs. Now, if we look at this one, I saved it with that weird thing in front. So let me make sure I change that to a 6. Oop. Okay. So I can look at this guy, right? And I can view it. I can view my details and I can view it by type. So then when I scroll down here, I can see all of my EXP files together. So this software program reads the EXPs and now we're going to open all of them. And this is our line. It's hard to see, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say File, Save As. This is our straight line, but we want to pick BQM. So we're going to scroll all the way down to Bernina BQM and say Save. And now we can close this one. And now there's our square, and we say File, Save As, scroll all the way down to the bottom, BQM, close this one. Now, I just want to draw something to your attention. On some of these designs that are closed, like our 6-inch square, this is the BQM that I've opened in my embroidery tool shed, the quilt planner, right? So I have selected my BQM and I noticed when I zoomed in that this and this did not align, but we can fix that. So we're going to select our piece. Then we're going to select our nodes and see how our little stop and start. So we're going to just take the start and bring it right on top of the end like that. And now that fixed it. So now we're going to save it. Remember to save it as a BQM. Yes, I want to replace it. Perfect. And now once we have all these BQM files, we can drag and drop them onto a USB stick that I'm going to put a USB stick in my computer, and I'm going to then put that USB stick in my Bernina 990 or my Bernina 770 Pro or my 790 Pro or any of the machines that can read a BQM file. So now I'm in my Microsoft File Explorer, and now I'm going to look for all the BQM files. Click the first one, hold down Shift, click the last one, because I organized them by file type. And now I'm going to drag and drop these on my USB stick. And there they are.
All right, so I'm here at an actual 790 Pro. My simulator wasn't cooperating with me for this, so forgive the reflection. Hey. So we're going to pick our USB stick, and we're going to start with that straight line that we created. And now my needle is starting here because that's the starting position of this design, and it's just going to stitch da 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 da. Now, before we get started, I want to go into my settings, and I want to set in embroidery my quilting SPI, which is the stitches per inch, and I want this to be 12 stitches per inch. Now, what I want to do is, let's look at what I've got here in my hoop. I've got this panel, and I have black thread in here, okay? Just so I want you to be able to kind of see what I'm doing here when we stitch. I've got my laser on, and I want to just place this design here and there. And I'm going to use pinpoint placement to do that. So we're going to open up our edit screen, and we're going to open up pinpoint placement. Sorry, fingernails. And I can do this one, which is the grid, and I've got free point and I've got the grid. Just because it's a line and there's like 2 points, let's go ahead and place our pin right there and use our multifunction knobs right here, either the up or the down arrow, to move this into place just so. Okay, so I've got that aligned pretty well. Now we're going to say set, and now we're going to touch the other end, and we see that it went over here. So now we just need to go down a little bit. And now we're going to say set, and now we're going to stitch this out. I can even turn on my quilting settings. So that means that it's going to knot at the beginning, but it's not going to cut. And I'm going to bring my thread up. And now I have a straight line that's stitched there. Now, of course, if I were doing something that's a panel like this, I'd be using matching thread, and I'd probably be using that square that we made. But I just wanted to kind of show you how easily we made that line and how we could turn that in to many other things. So now I'm going to pick that design again. I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to use my free point pinpoint placement. Now, what would we do if we wanted the line to come down all the way down in this direction, right? We set our point from here to here, No problem, that was easy because that was close to the size of the line. But now let's try making it go from here all the way down. Now, if this is higgledy-piggledy and crooked, our straight line might not look so good. We might have to make two lines back to back, right? If there was a bend in the road, but let's just pretend that we think this line is perfectly straight. And I'm just trying to make sure I get the whole hoop in here for you, but we're gonna move this over. I'm paying attention to my laser along this line. Okay, so that's where I'm gonna start. So I'm gonna press set, and now I'm gonna come down to the end, and we're gonna move it and elongate it. And no, there's no way that you can actually spin your knobs off. This will be fine. Okay, set, and now let's stitch it out. Now remember, if it goes off the print just a little bit, don't worry, the print might not have been printed straight. Now I figured this was gonna happen, that it was gonna go a little bit off of that line because I could tell it wasn't exactly straight, it was kind of bowed out, but notice that we enlarged that stitch 214%, but it is the same length as the stitch here normally. That's the beauty of the BQM file. Let's take this block right here and let's put that square right here. And in this case, we're going to use the 2-inch square we created just for fun. So we're going to go back to our edit screen. We're going to pick a new design, and we're picking the 2-inch square. Now we're going to go into pinpoint placement, morph, and now let's zoom out and see what's happening in both of these scenarios. So I'm going to take my line and I'm going to line it right up here at that top point. Okay, and I'm going to go over here now and move my piece. Oh, and I want to make sure I tell it I want to morph. And I might have to move this one down. Okay, now let's fix this one here. And get this one. Okay, so now let's stitch this out. And so that was really fun and a great way to do some simple quilting. So you can see how our little shapes and everything can kind of lend themselves nicely to doing something like this. Let's see how we can take it to yet another level using our Bernina 990.
In the simulator, it's just a little bit easier for me to show you and everything here. But the 990 is so much fun for so many reasons when we're talking about doing this, playing with BQM files and things like that. So let's just take our straight line and I can rotate it like I did before, right? Just like this. And then I can duplicate, move this over. It's easier for me to do it this way. Move it over like this. And now see how it starts and ends here, but ends and starts here. So there'd be a jump stitch there. So I'm going to reverse the stitching order. And this is cool. You can only do this on the 990. Now let's make another copy. And look, it moves it over the same distance I just moved this one. And then I can flip it again, like so. I just think that's really cool. So we could keep going with this as much as possible. Another thing that we could do with this, if we didn't want to do it this way, and remember, we just drag and delete here. And let's go back to this guy and let's rotate it back to normal here, right? I could go into endless embroidery, which is this guy here. Get rid of these. I don't need 80 of these. Thank you very much. Let's just do 8, shall we? Maybe we want them like 20 millimeters apart or something. Save. And now all I have to do is ungroup and now take each one of these, click on them here, and flip, 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 flip. And now we'd have like a little cross hatching, right? And then even better, I can select all, group it again, duplicate, and rotate. And if I needed to, I could kind of line things up like so and elongate them. And now look, I have cross hatching. Pretty cool, huh? And then now if I save this exactly this way, it's going to revert to an EXP file. So when you're working with your BQMs, you want to make sure that you don't save them. They are just a moment in time. However, per our lesson when I was talking about the software, if this is designed specifically for a quilt you're working on, and this is the exact size for all of your blocks and everything, then yes, you can save it and convert it to an EXP at this point, as long as you're not going to be enlarging or reducing it from this point forward. Now, of course, there's lots of options for playing with this. And another one that's really fun is I had made this continuous circle, right? And now let's get a larger hoop. Let's get our giant hoop. And now let's reduce this in size just a little bit and see how it's stopping and starting here, or it starts and ends here. I want to rotate this. So it's like this, right? And now I want to make a duplicate. I ran out of hoop, so let's keep duplicating. So now this is literally going to stitch a circle that's together. And that is because that circle that I made, where I did a circle and then did a little arch, now it links them together so we could do so many fun things with this. We could even select all here, right? And group it, then duplicate this. As long as I select them and I have them aligned at the top, could make sure that they're exactly the way I want them to stitch. And look at all of the fun patterns that we can create like this. Let's have a look at that original circle. And this one, we're going to go back to our giant hoop. With this one, if I take one circle and I make a copy and I rotate it 20 degrees, and I do this 18 times, I can have a spirograph. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, let's do it. Okay, so what we're not going to pay attention to here is the placement right now. We're just like throwing up a bunch of circles that have been rotated 20 degrees. But once we get 18 of them duplicated and adjusted in the hoop, then we are going to use a tool that is going to match our stop starts. And there it is. And then once you have it all aligned, we're going to group and look at that cool design. Okay, so that's something fun that you can do. Then I feel like I need to save this. It's not quite the size I want, but I went to all this effort. I'm going to save it. Call it spirograph. Okay, and we'll put it on our machine. Na, 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 na. There we go. I just couldn't resist. So I had to stitch out that spirograph design that I made. Now, this is an EXP. This is face value. The stitches came in a little short for my liking, and I think that's just because I was playing with the stitches per inch when I set this BQM file. But nonetheless, I'm going to show you, even if you save this as an EXP, how you can get this back to a BQM file. Get ready. Okay, so here we are back at our machine, and I want to retrieve that spirograph design. So I'm going to use the sewing machine with the arrow jumping out of it up here. And we're going to go to our Bernina 990. And we're going to retrieve something from the brain. And it's in my designs, and I named it spirograph. So it should be in here. It's alphabetical order. There it is. Woo-hoo! This design is going to load it onto our computer. I don't want to do that. I want to actually edit this design in my table. So I'm going to select this little version right here that says 9, that little icon. Yours might say a big D or a big C, depending on if you have Designer Plus or Creator. So I'm going to click that button. And there it is. Now, silly thing is it's all different colors. So I'm going to just change everything to color number 1. So I can click, scroll down, hold down my shift key, and pick color number 1. And now I'm going to say File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as an art file. But then I'm going to export this as an EXP file. And I'm going to call it Spirograph. And then save. And now, once again, I'm going to open my tool shed from Dime. And I'm going to find my Spirograph EXP file. There it is. Open. I'm going to make sure everything matches and everything looks lovely. And then I'm going to say File, Save As. You know the drill. BQM. And now I'm going to take that USB stick and I'm going to save this as Spirograph on my USB stick. And we're going to stitch it out again. And we're going to stitch it in 2 different sizes. And we're going to pick the same stitches per inch for the whole thing. So let's say we're going to open this. I saved it in this folder. And we're looking for Spirograph BQM. There it is. Right click, copy. My USB stick, right click, paste. Not to get it confused with that EXP file. Remember, our 990 and all of our Pro machines will differentiate the EXP files from the BQM files. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to safely remove my USB stick. And we're going to go back to the sewing machine.
Okay, so we're done with this, so we're gonna get rid of it. And now I'm gonna go back to that USB stick and I'm gonna go for the Spirograph. See how there's BQM version and an EXP? Let's do the BQM. Now, let's also see what stitch length we have set up for our stitches per inch. 10. I want to go just a little bit longer just so we can see the difference here. This might not be what I would choose in the real world, but this is just for my testing capability. And so now we're going to go back to embroidery and we're going to reduce the size of this and we're going to move it down here. Okay, so this is one. Now I'm going to insert another one. Once again, it's in my USB stick under BQM. And so we have 2. Okay, there we go. So we have 2 different sizes now. That's not going to compete with what's already there in the hoop. So we're going to quilt settings on, multicolor. I think we'll go ahead and say single color, okay. And now let's stitch. Oh, you're going to love this. Okay, so let's have a look at our EXP version that we saved. See how close those stitches are? It doesn't look horrible, it's just tight. And then we brought it back into the machine, saved it as an EXP, and then opened it in our My Quilt Planner software to make a BQM. Then I saved it with a 9 stitches per inch. So if we count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, the whole bit, that would be an inch. So 9 stitches per inch. Then we made another one in a different size, but we still kept the 9 stitches per inch setting. And now we have a larger spirograph with the 9 stitches per inch, and it looks more proportioned and it just looks so great. Look at those stitches. And this Metler 50 weight thread in variegated, it just is so beautiful. And now if we look at these two, we can really compare the difference. All right, and there is the reason why you want a Pro machine or you want a 990 and you want to supplement your software with the My Planner, My Quilt Planner from Dime.
Right. Well, what do you think? I hope you enjoyed this month's episode. I thought it was enlightening, and I certainly can use these elements and make many more for so many different quilting projects. So make sure that you join us next time on October 15th for another fun adventure in Bernina Software Building Blocks. And it's never too late to join. Just simply hop on over to berninaofnaperville.com, search building blocks, and you'll have the option to choose the 2024 program, which is volume one. Everything is canned, it's all ready to go. Or you can join us on our journey in 2025 for volume two. The choice is yours. But until then, happy digitizing, happy embroidery, happy quilting, and you can see more videos just like this one, or more informative ones, or funny ones on our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's pretty easy to find. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville. And there you can like, comment, and subscribe. See ya.